Let's talk a bunch of different topics.
How'd her career get there?
This is a podcast with Lauren Asghari.
Hey, everybody. Thank you for listening. Hit that like button, leave a positive comment, or hit subscribe to get alerted when new episodes drop. All of this will help keep the project going. Thank you for your support and enjoy the episode. This is the Lauren Asghari podcast, How'd Her Career Get There? And my guest today is Tracy Imm. I'm going to give Tracy a brief intro. So many things to list. So I'm going to run down them as quick as I can for our audience. Founder and CEO of Tracy Imm Worldwide, VP and lead change consultant at T. Rowe Price, McDaniel College Women's Leadership Network, an advisory council member for 2+ years, a Daily Record Top 100 Women, and then an author to a couple of books, which we're going to get into later, the inspiration for those, The Brave Girl's Guide to Work That You Love, and Conquer Shame and Success, 3 Keys to Abundance, Love, and Leadership. So welcome, Tracy.
Thanks, Lauren. I'm excited to be here and to talk to you about how my career got me to here.
I'm excited about this. So let's start present day, and then we'll get in our time machine and go backwards a little bit. So give kind of an overview, if you will, kind of both areas, maybe. Like, what is Tracy Imm worldwide? And then what do you also kind of do in some of your more day-to-day work?
Sure. So I have embraced the portfolio career, which is sort of the new buzzword. I have a freelance business where I work privately with individuals and groups and organizations around leadership development, and in the capacity of sort of an executive coach. So that's sort of my side hustle. And I have been doing that probably for the last 8 or 9 years. And I've taken sort of all the knowledge that I've gained through my work experience. And I offer services out to nonprofits, government agencies, as well as other corporations and individual small business owners as well. Primarily, my focus has always been on women's leadership development. And so that's sort of the niche that I specialize in, although I do coach and mentor and teach men. So it's not exclusive, but I've really kind of packaged all that up and into a freelance business. So, and then my day job, I have had a lot of experiences that I think are really interesting and unique. I've been in Fortune 100 companies. I've been in tech startups. I've worked in government agencies, and I've also worked in small businesses as a contributing person in the small business. So I have sort of this plethora of experiences in all these different functional areas as well. So I try to bring that to the table. And in my day job with T. Rowe Price, I primarily am working in the tech and data space, but more on the people readiness side. And as these tech and data changes come out, are the people ready to embrace these new ways of working, right? And so I have spent a lot of my career doing these large business transformation projects at global organizations. And so that is the work that I bring as a consultant inside of the company. So, you've got management consultants that are out there from anywhere from McKinsey to BCG to Accenture to EY to Deloitte. You've got all those. But a lot of times they don't have a change component or a change practice. And so it is oftentimes better done on the inside because the people, the organization, the hot spots and the pain points. So that's kind of where I am. But at my core, I'm a storyteller, I'm a writer, I'm a teacher. And so those are sort of my passions. So that's kind of my portfolio career at the moment.
I love hearing how you define yourself and then leading it, and then just how that has led to what you actually do in your work to get, to earn an income and a living. So this will be fun. This will be exciting to kind of get a little bit more backdrop on your journey. So let's get in our time machine and go back to when Tracy was a little kid. Just some background info, like where were you born? Only child? Did you have siblings? What were you like as a kid? Some of your personality traits? Where'd you grow up?
Sure. So I was born in Baltimore, at what was then Maryland General Hospital. It's now University of Maryland Midtown. But so I was born in Baltimore to two teachers who had met through their teaching, and I grew up outside of the city. Had pretty much. I had a sister who I call her my Irish twin. She's 12 months younger than me, 13 months younger, and so sort of had this suburban kid lifestyle, did Girl Scouts, did sports, loved school, all of the things. And I loved to write. And so I've always been that person who, is very relationship oriented with people, very focused on making sure that I was part of creating an inclusive environment. Like I was the kid that if somebody was sitting at a lunch table and they were sitting by themselves, I would bring them over to the table and be like, come with us. Like I never wanted anyone to feel excluded. Right. And so I think that's why I have a lot of passion around inclusion and belonging, because that's just innately who I am. I never want someone to feel left out. And I want to appreciate the diversity of sort of humans, right? And as a human race. And so I was the captain of the field hockey team. I was the president of the Girl Scout troop. Like I've always been that person that wants to get everybody organized towards a purpose. And that continued through high school and college. And that kind of is really how I led to my very first job. So I know one of your questions was, how did I get into the line of work? Well, it was kind of circuitous. My dream when I was a kid was to be an on-air sports broadcaster. And back in the day, there were no women sideline reporters. And like that was what I wanted to do because I loved sports. I loved reporting. I loved all of that. Right. And I thought if I could go to college and become an on-air sports broadcaster, and to break into that field as like a pioneer, I was living my best life. And unfortunately, that didn't work out. I did have an internship where I was the first female intern in the sports newsroom at a local TV station in Baltimore. And they actually, the first time I applied, they told me they'd never had a woman and that basically girls weren't allowed. And so they put me in the public relations department, which I didn't really want to be in, but I was like, okay. And then I was doing a study abroad. And so I was like, well, I'm going to go do my study abroad. But when I come back, you will hear from me and I will be in the sports newsroom. So I was really pushy. And I got what I wanted. So I did. I went away. I went to London for 6 months. I came back and I was like, called the hiring manager and I was like, I'm back and I'm ready for my on-air sports broadcast experience. And so they were really skeptical that I would even know anything about sports. I would even be a good intern. And by the time I left, they told me I was the best intern they had ever had because I was so into it. And I was like, I'm going to make this work. And then they did offer me a job when I graduated, but it was not going to pay very well. So I went back to my college career counselor and I was like, okay, this isn't working. It's not a livable wage. And he said, you've had all these leadership experiences and you're a really strong leader. Why don't you think about going to the local banks who have these management training programs that train their executives from the time you get out of college and then they groom you through the whole system. And so that's what I did. And I got there and I was terrified because I didn't know a debit from a credit. I didn't know what they were talking about. So I went back to the sort of the head of HR who was running the program. And I was like, I am so lost in the sauce here. And he's like, you need to go get your MBA. And he said, we will pay for it. And that will establish you for even higher levels. So that's what I did. The bank paid for me to get my MBA. I learned to debit from a credit. And then I just my career took off from there. And once I got my MBA, it was game on. Right. So it's kind of a long story, but it's all when I look back, there's a through line.
When you were a kid, what do you remember? Or do you remember or did you think this way? I guess even when you were a kid, you were interested in the sports broadcasting stuff.
Oh yeah, I was always really ambitious. Yeah. And I remember saying to my mom when she's like, you got to start looking at colleges. I'm like, here are my criteria. They have to have a communications major that teaches you how to be a broadcaster. There has to be a Greek life, right? I want to be part of that, and it has to be Division 3 so that I can play sports and be a student, right? I wasn't of the level of a D1 athlete while a lot of my friends were. I knew I wasn't, and I didn't want to do what that would take. So I was like, I would be really, really happy if I could be a D3 athlete, be a student leader, learn the broadcast industry, television, radio, all of the things. I think that's for me. And so that's how I landed at McDaniel, which back in the day, it was Western Maryland College. And it was the perfect fit for me. I also wanted a school that had a study abroad program, which they did. And so it checked all the boxes for me. And I've continued to stay involved with the college, both as a professor and now on this advisory board for the president, because I feel like there's so much value in a liberal arts education. It teaches you how to think critically. It teaches all the classic things that, are foundational. And so I feel, that was like my place where I needed to be at that time. And it helped me really get into the workforce.
Yeah. Yeah. What was, I want to circle back to, I'm going to come back to the bank and the experience there and kind of where you went from there. But before I do that, when you were a kid, what do you remember? And it can be from your parents or other, inspirational adults in your life. But what do you remember are maybe the one or two traits that you got or were developed? Where did you get them from, or who encouraged you, that have really carried through with who you are today that you think are really valuable?
So the first one, I would say it was really from my grandparents, and that was my faith. My grandparents were really involved in the Presbyterian Church in Baltimore, and I would spend the summers with them. They had a farm, a 40-acre farm, and I think that has been a through line also in my life, is my faith in a higher being, and that something greater than me. And so, when time gets tough, I go back to that, right? And my grandmother used to always say, when I would get upset about things, she would say, "This too shall pass, Tracy." Or she'd say, Rome wasn't built in a day. And so my grandmother and my grandfather were really influential in that sort of character trait that I feel like I have and I bring to everything that I do. And I think the other thing is my mom and dad were both people. And they taught me to always be kind and to treat everyone with respect. My dad was the principal of a high school, and he said, "You meet the same people on the way up as you do on the way down. And so be nice to everyone." And he said, he's like, "Some of my best friends are the custodians." And he said, "I respect them for coming in every day, cleaning my school and, going back home to their families and earning money to pay for their families to live." And he said, "They're not any more important or less important because of their role. They're equally as important as me as the principal," right? And so I think that was a big part of it. My parents always liked to have parties. They always liked to meet new people. They always liked to entertain. And so I think I got a lot of that from them, which I have carried through my life, right? And I've actually gotten jobs where was somebody that I worked with at a different company recommended me to come work with them in a new company. And it's because of that relationship that I built and that kindness and that respect, that mutual respect.
Well, those are two solid ones. I mean, kindness and faith, you carry those throughout your life, and you're bound to do great things. And that relationship component that you mentioned, I mean, I feel is so important. And just making sure that no matter when you meet people or who you meet them, that you treat, or when or how you meet them, that you treat them with kindness and just maintain relationships. You just never know how they can be helpful to you in life or how you can help somebody else. So I love those.
Right.
So let's fast forward back to the bank. So you're working at the bank, and then give kind of you got your MBA, which is awesome. And I just want to highlight, and we'll circle back to this theme a little bit later. I want to highlight that it sounds like you had a I don't want to say vulnerability necessarily, that might be the wrong word, but where you went to your manager and you said, "Hey, I'm struggling here," right? And it resulted in them offering to, you got an MBA out of it, right? I mean,
Right.
obviously there's more to it than that, but so just encouragement for the audience that, it's okay to admit when you don't understand something, make sure that you're trying all the time. But it's okay to admit that you're working hard to learn. Um, so take us from how you get from working at a bank to ultimately, there's a lot in between, I'm sure, to deciding, okay, I want to have a side business where I do, this type of additional work.
So I always thought it would be interesting to be an entrepreneur, not really knowing what that even meant. And I would say that, at the bank, I had entrepreneurs as customers, right? And so a lot of my job was working with them to figure out their finances as a small business owner. So I kind of saw it from that angle, and them getting really excited when they'd land a contract and things like that. So the bank was a really good training ground because they focused on operations, they focused on customer service, and they focused on business development and marketing, right? Three things that you need as an entrepreneur. And so I feel like I got a really good foundation there. After I got my MBA, I went from the retail side of the bank where you're dealing with the public and the branches and all the things and operations to the commercial side where I was a credit underwriter and I was supporting the loan officers as they were going out and giving like lines of credit to businesses and doing all these complicated financial transactions. And then also I did a stint in the workout unit when everything kind of went south, right? You had to
Mhm.
unravel it and all that. And I did I did two rotations that I really liked. One was in healthcare banking, and the other one was in commercial finance, where it was but based lending, and I learned a lot in both of those roles. Um, so I would say that you see the more like complex pieces of like middle market size companies
Mhm.
and family owned businesses and things of that nature. Um, but I think that again, the banking really gave me a good foundation, even for the rest of my career. But it really wasn't until 2019 I said to my sister, I said, I've always really wanted to start my own business. And I feel like if I don't do it now, I'm never going to do it. And it's funny, we were in Hawaii at my nephew's wedding, and she's like, well, then just quit your job. And I was like, what do you mean just quit my job? Like, I'm the sole breadwinner here. Like, what's going on? And she's like, you're only going to know if you try. And so I came back from the vacation and I started basically pounding the pavement to get a contract, to just prove to myself that I could get a contract. So I got a contract, got one contract. And based on that one contract, which was really kind of small, I felt like, okay, that's a sign from the universe that I'm supposed to do this. So I quit my
Mhm.
job and with my one little contract, and I that was sort of like I ripped the band-aid off. I'm like, it's now or never. And so I had my business full time all through COVID, and I was able to land a ton of contracts. I had probably 8 or 9 clients, big clients, like big organizations that put me on like multi-year like retainer to do different work for them. And it was all different types of work, but it was work that I had done in the corporate space. And so some of it was like one client, I came in, they wanted to start an internal communications and engagement function. So I went in, I stood up the function, I hired them people, I trained them, I put processes in place for them. And then I sort of like the whole plan was for me to just go in, set it up, and then leave. But I've since had follow on work with them just because of that relationship that I built with them.
Mhm.
So that's kind of, but it's hard to balance a robust freelance business while you're working 9 to 5, right? And
Mhm.
that's been sort of the biggest learning that I've had over the last couple years is, you really have to focus and if you were going to deliver results for somebody. So I have scaled back, but I didn't completely close my business because eventually I'm going to retire, whatever
Mhm.
that means, right?
Right.
Would like to continue to provide services to people under that umbrella.
What is and you can kind of answer this through whatever lens you want to. What would you say is the best part of your career or job now? Like, what's the thing that just really invigorates you?
I think it's working with individuals, and this is both my day job and my freelance business, is I feel like I'm a natural coach. I'm able to give people feedback in a way that is with kindness and love. And when they have a big aha moment and they become more self aware, that brings me such joy because I'm like, that is sort of like when that switch gets flipped, that's when people, really become very coachable. They can learn and grow a lot faster. Their teams can like improve their performance. And so that is what I love being part of. And it doesn't happen overnight. It happens
Mhm.
through many conversations, many interactions. But when they have that aha moment, and then they've sort of learned whatever lesson it was they were supposed to learn, and they don't have to keep repeating it,
Mhm.
I love seeing that.
Why do you think, when you talk about transformation or change, and whether it's in your, your day job or your side business, why do you think people are resistant to change, like in a business context?
Yeah, it's so hard, right? Like we like our little comfortable rut that we get into. I mean, and I count myself in that. I think it can be scary. It's fear of the unknown. It's not really believing that because when you do these big projects, right? We say, "Oh, here's the value that will be realized from that." Like, am I going to lose my job? Like, and I look at it a different way. I'm like, what new skills can you learn to make to then fit into this new world, right? Like right now, I think it's AI, right? Like everyone should be onboarding and taking personal initiative to learn AI and to become more proficient in AI in a responsible way. That will then that to me is just another wrapper that you can put on the box of you, right?
Mhm.
Is that you have AI skills, fluency, literacy. It's not going to take over your job, but it's going to maybe change the way you do your job, right? Because you're still going to need human empathy, interaction, and everything with whatever AI spits out. That part will never go away, the human side. But I do think that you have to have a different mindset for change. Um,
Mhm.
and you do have to internalize it. And then I also say you have to get to acceptance as soon as you can, right? So a lot of like when you do change management in an organization, you lay out the business case and you explain to people why we're doing this, right? And it's very nebulous and it's at this 100,000 view level. And so you can't really get your arms wrapped around it. And people want to immediately go to, well, what does that mean for me? And you do
Mhm.
have to get to that point. You have to explain it to people. Well, it means that your hands on your keyboard, the user interface is going to look different,
Mhm.
right? Or something that you're doing a spreadsheet now, you can just hit a button and do some drop downs and put together a Power BI dashboard, right? And so I think that we all have our own reasons why we resist change, but the more comfortable you can get and the quicker you can get to acceptance, and past the understanding and the knowledge and the awareness phases, then it just becomes more of like, okay, this is just a new way of doing things.
Mhm. I love that. I love that. What would you say on the opposite side of the spectrum? What do you think is maybe the part that's a little less talked about, or the underbelly of being a female leader?
Yeah, I think right now what's coming up for me a lot is self-advocacy. We're not really taught as girls or women that that's a positive thing to advocate for yourself, and so we don't really have that muscle. And I'm not saying by any stretch of the imagination I'm great at this, but I do think um, that a big part of your personal brand is to be able to advocate for yourself, right? Advocate for the right amount of wages, and benefits when you're in the workplace and getting comfortable with what it's going to take for you to advocate for yourself. Sometimes it's as simple as doing role play conversations with like a safe person,
Mhm.
friend, a mentor, a coach, or whatever, on this is what I want to say when I go in and I ask for my raise, or I ask for more compensation, or I ask for more responsibility, whatever that is, whatever it is you really want to go in and talk about. But I do think that a lot of people talk about imposter syndrome, and I think it's more about being comfortable with who you are, and then being able to stand up for yourself and the value that you bring, the value proposition that you bring to the table to an employer, I think is
Mhm.
really important.
That advocacy topic is something that I hear a lot. I feel like that is a major and I hear it more with women. I'm not saying that
Yeah,
men do or don't have that, right? Obviously, making broad generalization, but I've heard it a lot from women whether it's asking for what you want, or the tone in which you ask for what you want, or I don't want to come across too like I know everything. So I think that there's um, definitely a lot of validity and a lot of value in what you say there. And I've noticed, I'm thinking back to your sports, when you wanted to do sports broadcasting, right? That advocacy, I mean, you were in there advocating for yourself. So it's interesting to kind of see that through line to something that you're, noticing even now can be an area that people can,
right,
expand on, and all of us can get better at, right? So,
right. Yeah, I find like with a lot of my coaching clients or prospects, when they come to me, they don't have clarity on what they want. And you've got to have the clarity on what it is that you want before you can get to that step, I think. And so I have spent a lot of my coaching hours with women in particular at different phases of their career, whether it's early career, mid career, last third, trying to get really, really crystal clear on what is it that you want, and then going and advocating for it. Right.
mhm,
And so, and really doing the pros and cons of, if I go this way, that'll be great. I have one that she was a nurse, and she didn't want to be the ICU charge nurse, but she wanted to be a a nurse practitioner. And so she went down this whole, I mean, I spent 6 to 8 months with her just going down this whole rabbit hole of like, which was the right path. And, different life changes were going on in her life with her kids aging and her parents aging, and just really trying to get that clarity on like what's going to be the best thing for me long term, not just
mhm,
like in here and now. And it's funny because she didn't go down any of those paths. COVID hit. She became the charge nurse by default at a hospital that had one of the highest COVID death rates. And she was like so burnt out. She left nursing altogether. And now she has a thriving business where she curates basically antiques, mid century modern antiques.
cool.
And yeah, and she's doing amazing. And that was like her thing. Like that was just like a thing that she liked, she was interested in, and she's
Mhm.
turned it into this like she's got multiple locations where she displays her like these little antique malls and stuff. She's got like multiple ones all over the state of Maryland. Like I'm just so proud of her. I'm like, yep, you're not a nurse, you're not a nurse practitioner, you're running a business full on.
Yeah, good for her. Good for her.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, that advocacy thing. What would you? I'm thinking as we're on that topic. My gosh, I'm just sitting here thinking like just I was so not good at that earlier in my career. Just I had it very clear in my head, but when it came to like articulating it, it's like by the time that it came out of my mouth, it just sounded so bad. I don't know.
Yes.
Just yeah, like irritated already. Like when it came out of my mouth, I just sounded irritated, even though in my mind I was like very rational and very clear. It was almost just like, get out like what I'm trying to say. And there was no finesse when trying to advocate for myself.
Yeah, mine came across whiny.
Yeah, yeah. I
Whiny and angry or something. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah, mine came across irritated for sure, and it's just interesting because it's a skill. I read this book once, my old boss had recommended to me, it's called Fierce Conversations, and it, like,
Oh yeah.
changed my life. I highly recommend that book to anybody, but anyway, it was, the advocacy thing I think is huge. Um, Sticking on a book topic, but we're not gonna talk about Susan Schatz's Fierce Conversations, we're gonna talk about your books. What inspired you to write these?
Yeah, well, like I'm sort of like an accidental author. I mean, even though I've been a professional writer my whole entire career, well, I say my whole entire career, I would say after banking is when I kind of pivoted over into the comms and marketing space. Um, is so the first one, I was a hiring manager and I was hiring people with college degrees, communications degrees who could not do what I needed them to do. And so I got really frustrated because for 2 years, I would end up training these people to just know the basics, right? For an entry level position. So I decided I was going to go and talk to student groups at local colleges and universities that I was hiring from to talk about what they need to do in order to be successful as one of my new hires, right? So I had gone to Towson University and I spoke to like 200 mass comm majors who were like juniors and seniors. And I had this whole presentation, slides, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, look, this is what you need to know in order to be somebody that I would hire. Right. And this one student came up to me at the very end and she goes, you need to write this into a book that like you could sell to students. And I was like, really? And I was like, it's just a PowerPoint presentation. She's like, no, you really need to turn this into a book. So that's what I did. And I just self-published. It was basically my speech. It was basically what I told them I had done to get to where I was, which I was like the executive in charge of Corp Com at a Fortune 100 company. And I was like, look, when I hire you guys, you have to know how to do this, this, and this. So that's how the first book came, right? And it was really just about like, and it was right around the time there was a lot of these like field guides too. So I was like, oh, it's the Brave Girl's Guide to Work That You Love, right? In order for because these were all people who were really passionate about going into marketing and communications or broadcasting. So I was like, okay, that's the first book. So, and then I created like a workshop off of it and things like that. And then my second book was like, okay, I really want to write a book and I want to learn the process of how you write a book. I want to know like the editing process. I want to know the publishing process. And so I went through Amazon's Create Space and I hired a book coach and I said, and I was really getting into Brene Brown and teachings and I was going through her training all around shame. And so I was like, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to write this like book about all my shameful stories and what I learned from them. So I worked with this book coach. We put the whole thing together. I did it like a 3-act play was like the format. And then she edited everything. And then I had Create Space create it. Now I published it in 2018 and I never promoted it ever for whatever reason. I just haven't. I'm now just now promoting it and realizing that it could really help a lot of people, right? Because we all have shame, and shame's like a lower vibe emotion, and you really don't want to stay down in those lower vibes. Like you want to move up to like joy, happiness, peace, love, like all the things, right? And so that's really how that happened. So then, fast forward, I decided, okay, I'm ready for the big time. I want to get a traditional publisher. So I hired another book coach who is pretty famous. And I went to her retreat in Carmel, California for a week. And she and I are working on my book proposal and my query letters to get myself an agent. And that book is going to be really sort of like in the rearview mirror, me looking at my corporate experience, looking at where we are in the world, and my sort of big sister advice to other corporate women, right? And so I've got a couple of the chapters written because you need that as part of the book proposal. So I'm on my journey now to try and find a big 5 publisher and an agent for that. And a big part of what she recommended is that I build my platform and my audience. And so that's why I've increased, my publications of my podcast. I have a lot of subscribers on LinkedIn. I have a lot of subscribers on YouTube. I have a lot of subscribers on Instagram. And so because that's what the traditional publishers look for. They look for somebody who already has an established audience. And my established audience is corporate women. It's mid-career, it's early career, mid-career. Like those are sort of the people. And what I have found in corporate through all these years, I'm always the big sister. Like they come to me because they know they can trust me. They know I'm not going to take their information anywhere. And so they view me as the big sister. So this is really my big sister, tome
Mhm.
to women that are entering the workforce. And it's so different now than like where I've been over the last 30 years. So just trying to really like things that maybe worked in the past, I don't think are going to work in the future.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah. Without, well, first off, we're gonna link up, um well, I'll get to this at the end and ask you where, but we'll link up whatever we can in our show notes,
Uh-huh.
your Instagram, your YouTube, your LinkedIn, all that. Um, what is some things without giving away the book, because obviously we want you to sell a lot of copies of the book, so
Yeah, exactly.
you can't give all the gems away on this podcast. But if you were just saying in broad strokes, like what would be um, a piece of advice that you would give somebody, and you can answer it however you want, now in their career making a shift, earlier in their career when they were first starting? What is like a piece, one or two pieces of advice that you would give somebody?
Yeah, I think I have a couple. The first one is to always be learning and serving, especially if you're a leader, right? You need to always be thinking of who are you serving, and come from a place of servant leadership. And then also they'll always be learning sort of the growth mindset that Carol Dweck promotes, right? I
Mhm.
think that is both of those have served me really well. And then the other thing, which was I think one of the questions that you had sent over was about how to define success. And when I really think about it, I think that you need to live your life from a place of love. And what I mean by that is the things that I feel have made me the most successful is when I've stayed focused on my faith, my family, and my health. And when I've veered away from those by choosing work over those, I've gotten into some trouble, right?
Mhm.
Whether it was a medical leave of absence because I overworked myself into burnout, or, I just kind of lost my cool and I wasn't able to regulate my emotion. And so the other thing that my career really took off when I got an executive coach and I
Mhm.
hired a mindset psychologist. And I wish I would have done that sooner, as made those investments, because I was working in these very technical, scientific, white male dominated industries, whether it was aerospace and defense or it was nuclear power. And I did not see people that looked like me.
Mhm.
And so I'm grateful that a lot of my mentors were these white men who were scientific, nuclear scientists and, engineers and things like that. But I do think that, you have to be your own mentor and your own sponsor. And you have to really, and I learned a lot of that when I had the mirror of an executive coach.
Mhm.
And I learned so much about the laws of the universe when I invested in working with that person, that I wish and everything shifted for me once I did that. And I really wish that I would have done that sooner. So those are some of the things that I really want to impart in
Mhm.
this book, because I feel like people are anxious, they're lonely, they're burnt out, they're disengaged, like all the things, right? So that's just the facts of the world that we're living in. It just seems more intense. And I feel like technology and social media has kind of contributed to that.
Yeah, magnify it a bit more and
And
increase the
yes,
anxiety around it. Yeah, I
yeah.
would agree with that. What were some things that you, like with your executive coach or your mindset coach, like was there one or two things in particular that you like had an aha moment where like something was brought out of you and you just, it was like a light switch and you were like, oh, it, now I see it this way. And that was an unlock.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I had a million of them, but the one that I had with the mindset coach was, he said to me, I was really struggling with something, and he said, Tracy, the sooner you get to acceptance, then you're good. Because
Mhm.
I was in these low vibe and I was like really upset about things. And he's like, it is what it is, right? And it sounds so simple, but it's very hard
Mhm.
to not be passive aggressive because you're so upset about it or whatever. And once he said that to me, then every problem that I've had kind of moving forward, I always say, I just need to get to acceptance. And
Mhm.
once I get to acceptance, then I can move forward, right? And so that was one that really, really stood out for me, that even to today, I really appreciate. The other thing I did, one executive coach for 3 years, I did a mastermind, a group mastermind, and everyone in the group mastermind was a CEO. And everyone came from a different industry. And I was not a CEO, I was in corporate. And that was a really good experience because she facilitated monthly conversations where it was helping each other problem solve and mastermind around things. And I was shocked at the things that these CEOs were dealing with. Like I just had in my mind, I had like that it would be something different than it was, but it was just the human condition, right? And the problems that they were struggling with. And, and I'm sure you find this as a CEO, like a lot of times you can't talk to your employees. Your spouse probably doesn't really understand. So you really do need to be in a room with other people who are in in that seat, and a sort of sacred circle of like trusted advisors that can like help you noodle through like situation, whether it's with an employee or a client or something of that nature. And so that 3-year experience was really valuable to me. And I feel like I grew professionally and personally by just being in the room once a month with these CEOs. And I think there was only 10 of us. So it was a small group. And that was, and the executive coach was a phenomenal facilitator and phenomenal executive coach.
I'm part of this group called WPO, Women's Presidents Organization, and it's a group of female entrepreneurs, and it's international, but heavily concentrated in the US. But up until I joined that group, which is probably like 7 years ago by this point, maybe 8, exactly what you said is right. When you own or run a business is, and I'm speaking from a female perspective because that's what I am. Again,
Right.
other people can have. This is my lived experience. Until I joined that group, I didn't feel like I had. And I have a wonderful husband. I have wonderful friends, wonderful family. My employees, like I wouldn't trade any of them. They're all amazing. But it's like I found my tribe of people that could relate in a different way than any of those other people could, because it's when you carry the mental load of running a business and then you come home and your kids had a first day of school or rough day at school, or you have to plan for whatever they're doing, right? And you have to be a wife, a mom, a sister, a friend, a daughter, right? All these other relationships, a boss, and you have to have, or you don't have to, but I want to have energy for all of those things. That it was definitely like an unlock for me, and like, oh, okay, like other people get, like it was much more relatable. Like, okay, they get it, like they can understand it and they've lived it in a different way. So that was
And a lot
huge
of
for me.
times, and a lot of times they're on the other side of that.
Yeah.
Right. And so they can kind of reflect back after they've already been through sort of the obstacle.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that was huge. And I love what you also said about getting to acceptance. I want to like double click on that, because that is I might articulate it in a different way, but I think the exact same way that you said that, and to hear you say that that's like an unlock, I'm just thinking how valuable that is to our audience. And it's not to say, and correct me if I'm off as I say this, because I don't want to put words in your mouth. It's not to say acceptance is like, oh, well, that's how it is and I can't change it. So, oh, well, boo hoo. It's like at a point when it's like, okay, the sooner that I accept that this is the reality, then I can start to operate from a less emotional place to be able to make some business decisions or decisions that are like a path forward. It's not an excuse to, just roll over and say, oh, well, that's life.
It's not. And you don't have to like it. Like it's not about liking it. Like you could just, I mean, unless it's something that like crosses like an integrity boundary or ethical boundary, like that's a different story. But like, when you, it's coming out of the victim mentality, I think, right? It's we're not doing this to you, right? Like we're rolling out this new system. We're not doing it to you. We're doing it for the benefit of our clients and our business, right? You just happen to be the operator on the keyboard that's going to have to learn this new system. And so that's the other thing is when I started working with these coaches, these mindset people, I realized, and also I realized this also when I wrote that second book, is that I had spent so much of my life and my career as a victim, and I needed to get out of the victim mindset and the victim mentality. And so as I was, having these different emotions about different situations in my life, I started saying, am I being a victim here? Like, am I self inflicting? Am I the part of the problem? Like, where am I in this story that I'm creating? And once I was able to like snap myself out of the victim mindset, that's when things started, changing for me. And also like these universal laws and things of that nature. Everything that happens to us for our higher good. And once I realized that, and I also realize that opportunities are always swirling around us. Sometimes we just don't take the time to see them. And so if one door shuts, it's probably because you're supposed to go through this door over here that isn't open right now. And so, like, there's been a number of times when I've applied for jobs, I've thought, I am the number one person. I'm the perfect fit. And then I haven't gotten it. And then I'll find out later, like, that person that was the hiring manager, I wasn't supposed to work for them, right? Like, I hear things about them and I'm like, oh, I'm so glad I didn't end up in that situation because that would not have been a good thing for me. And so I always look at, rejection as a form of protection. And I say the right opportunities will show up for me. And then I just have to I have to just decide, am I going to walk through the door or am I going to boohoo and cry in my beer? Right. Because, old Tracy probably would have cried in her beer. And now new Tracy says, oh, that just wasn't the right time, place, role, whatever, because I'm supposed to be over here, but it's not open yet.
I love everything that you're saying, and I feel like it allows when you shift from the victim mentality to, I almost think of it as like taking your power back, and then it's
100%.
like
Yes.
you're the director of your own movie, and you can always control how you respond to something, right? Not the circumstances, but how you respond.
Right.
So
And sometimes
I love that.
you have to increase the amount of space between stimulus and response, right? Like in the past, I would like react right away. And now I'm like, take a beat. Do I need to sleep on it? Is there anything I can do about it right now? Probably not. Right. And then I also think, and I coach a lot of people on this, we all have agency and free will. And you're only one choice away, just like I was one choice away from being an entrepreneur. Like I had one small contract and I said, I'm going to bet on myself. Right. And so we're always just one choice away from something groundbreaking, really.
I could talk to you for hours about this, so I'm gonna move us along to our last question because I love that topic around mentality and all of that so much, because I think that's like 90% of success, however you defined it, however anyone defines it for themselves. Um, Before I get to rapid fire, what advice would you give your like one piece specific to you, 23-year-old Tracy? What's like the one thing that you would get in your time machine and tell her?
It's all going to work out. I have been the biggest worry wart my whole entire life. And when I look back, I'm like, it worked out. Everything worked out. Like, don't worry. But like, I can't help myself. It's like how I'm wired. I'm like a worry wart. And so I would say that you just have to trust that it's all going to work out, right? Even if it seems horrible at the moment, it will work out as it's supposed to, right? And that goes back to like my faith as a lot stronger than it was back then.
I love that. Before I get to rapid fire, which is unrelated to anything that we've talked about so far, is there anything else that you want to cover or mention that we haven't yet talked about?
The only thing I was just going to mention is if somebody is in the audience that's interested in working in sort of the marketing and communications field, the thing that I always found the most exhilarating about all of my experiences as a communicator was the ability to work with subject matter experts. And I think that some of my success was that I would never act like I was a subject matter expert. Like, what do I know about nuclear power, right? Like, I took a science class in sixth grade, right? And so the ability to work with subject matter experts in these organizations is so interesting to me. And that, but the foundational skill sets that you need as a marketing and communications person are the same from industry to industry, government to nonprofit to, like if you know those basics, and it's really understanding who are those SMEs that you're in support of, and they're not always really good communicators. And so helping them get clarity of message, and figuring out the best tactics to get the information to their stakeholder groups, like all that stuff is like you need to learn that, but like you really can translate those functional skills into the application in all these different industries. Like, what did I know about hypersonic weapons of mass destruction, right? But I was able to learn it by working with, people who had that subject matter expertise. So I think it's an exciting time to be a marketing and communications person in the world. I think it's one of the adjacent skills of how I kind of got into change was because the world is always changing, is helping people through those changes, through your writing, through your, forms that you create and things of that nature. So I would highly encourage people, high school, college, whatever, or people even wanting to transition, that I really felt like that was a really good functional area to be in as a professional, because sometimes I had to sell myself into a new industry, right? To say, I have the core skills, but I will learn how to apply them in your industry where it makes sense. Because that's sort of the biggest barrier when you're dealing with hiring managers and recruiters, right?
Yeah. Go ahead. I have a question.
Well, I was just going to say that. So for me, like I was able to make a natural transfer from the energy generation, like business, right, to aerospace and defense, because I was one of the few women in the U.S. that was an executive leader in nuclear power, right? Power generation. Well, the same technologies and the same things are used in uranium enrichment that's used in weapons, right? And so it just so happened at this time, it was an easy transition. I didn't really have to sell myself because I had worked with nuclear scientists and people who were physics type people, to do comms for anything that was like intercontinental ballistic missiles, right? And the uranium enrichment process, right? And so I was able to translate that SME kind of brush that I had absorbed into a new industry. So sometimes transitioning from industry to industry. Now, if I would have tried to go into healthcare, that would be a harder transition, right? Even though I knew how to put together a communication strategy and stakeholder engagement plan and all the things, it's not, a lot of times the hiring managers and the recruiters want to see that you understand the nuances of their industry.
Excellent point and excellent advice. What would you say to people at any point in their career, whether they're this will be my last question, but you said something there that led me to it. Whether they're new in their career, or they're doing like a career transfer, but what would you say outside of the we'll say like industry SME knowledge, right? Or it's going to be different in healthcare than finance and nuclear, right? But outside of that, what would you say are maybe the handful of core skill sets for somebody to say, marketing communications might be where my natural skill sets align because I'm good, or I think that I'm capable of like ABC. Like, what are the handful of soft skills maybe, or mentality that people, if they have it, should maybe consider that type of career?
Well, I think you need to understand how business works. Who are you getting your revenue from? What are the biggest expenses and how do you manage them? And then who are your stakeholder groups, in order to do it? So you have to understand that you're not doing comms for comms sakes. You're doing comms in support of a business and the outcomes that the business wants. So you do have to understand that. You also have to be relationship oriented. You have to be able to work with the top of the house, the middle of the house, the bottom of the house, the side of the house, right? And so you do have to have really good soft skills in terms of people management and relationship and how you speak to people and communicate with people and how you help them get what they need done, right? And so it's that sort of like customer service mentality. One of the things I did when I was hiring managers, I had Tracy's 10 expectations for if you're on my team. And it was things like know the business, know who our customers are, both internal and external, know have a customer focused mindset, like, and when you're doing outreach, being professional, quality really matters. Like you can't have a typo in a press release. Like that's just like, get 3 people to check your press release before it goes out. Right. So it's like making sure your work is really buttoned up because the expectation is a lot higher when you are in communications, that you're not going to make those kind of like rookie mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say that's kind of the types of things that I think people need to think about.
Excellent. Excellent. Thank you for sharing that. And if people want to get in touch with you, what's the best way to find you? Again, we'll link up what we can in the show notes, but anything that you want to verbally share while we're here?
Yeah. So everything on social media is just Tracy Imm, IMM. So I'm on Instagram at Tracy Imm. I'm on YouTube as Tracy Imm. I am on LinkedIn as Tracy Imm. So they can just connect with me that way. And they can just Google Tracy Imm and like my website will show up. I'm thinking about starting a Substack because I think I want to have like another creative outlet where I can get all these ideas. My mind is always going with content ideas and ideas I want to share with people. So I'm toying around with that. I don't want to pull the trigger until I've got the bandwidth to really make it sustainable, because I do think that that's part of it. You can't like ghost your audience.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
so, absolutely. Absolutely.
But I'm thinking that it could help also as I'm writing this book, and I can pilot and test some of my concepts and ideas that I want to put in the book to see what resonates.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, if you get that going, I'm sure that'll end up being on your website. But if not, yeah, okay, good. Reach back out to us, and we'll update our show notes when that gets rolling.
And one other thing, I just want to put a plug in for my own podcast, Brave Girls with Tracy Imm. So it's in 54 countries. I'm getting close to 100 episodes, which I'm really super proud of. I've taken sort of a seasonal approach this year. And so I'm in season 4, and it's about women and money. And I've dropped 4 or 5 episodes. I got 4 or 5 more to go. And some of the people that I've talked to have written books about women and money. They are CFOs. Or they have, just their own viewpoint on women and money, and getting your sort of your brain around your relationship with money. So I'm super excited for this series. And then my next season is going to be about wellness, health and wellness. So
I love it. I love wellness, and I love the idea of further educating women about money. It's like that's actually a secret side passion of mine. So I don't do anything with it, but I love to hear that you are, and we will definitely link up the podcast info in this write-up also.
And I'll be sharing some of my favorite female podcasters in that space, some of my favorite books in that space, so that people can go do their own research. But some of the things that have helped me personally.
Love it. All right, let's go to rapid fire here. First thing that comes to mind, again, totally unrelated to what we talked about so far. So, brick or stone?
Stone.
Netflix or Hulu?
Netflix.
Eat in or go out?
Oh, definitely go out.
Mexican food or Thai food?
Mexican.
Sun or moon?
That's a good one. I might say moon.
Summer or winter?
Oh, definitely summer.
And last one, actually, I'm going to do 2 more for you since you're a Baltimore girl. Astronaut or deep sea diver?
Astronaut.
And the final one, Ravens or Orioles?
Well, I just went to the Orioles game last night, and I would say Orioles, even though I was sweating, it was 90 degrees. I made the Jumbotron, which I was really excited about. And Team Mustard won, which I was super excited about because I'm Team Mustard.
Oh, it's funny. I'm always relish.
Oh, in fact, my girlfriend is Team Ketchup. And we said, relish never wins. And do you even know any relish people? And now I know. I'm going to tell her I met a relish person because she's ketchup and I'm mustard. And then the other thing is the Orioles won. And they had a million home runs, and it was phenomenal. And it was Grateful Dead night. And so
Nice.
that was super fun that they played Grateful Dead music the whole entire time. And they had an amazing national anthem singer, Black Assets. And then they honored a man who had just retired from 31 years in the military, and he got a standing ovation. So I
Wow.
would say Orioles. And I love the Ravens, but it's too cold. I'm staying inside.
We'll pick our sports based on the weather. I can
Uh,
appreciate that. I
yeah,
can
yeah.
appreciate that.
I love your rapid fire. I'm going to have to pick up on that.
Well, Tracy, thank you so much for joining. I really, like I said, I mean, I could sit and talk to you for hours. I really enjoyed our conversation. So, thank you so much. And to everyone out there, we will see you next time on the Lauren Asghari podcast, How'd Her Career Get There? And again, my guest today was Tracy Imm. Thank you so much.
Let's talk a bunch of different topics.
How'd her career get there?
This is a podcast with Lauren Asghari.